feeling like I'm academics.
Hello, world. Ooh, I almost fucked up right there. I almost fucked that up right there. I don't think I did, though. Take me to a place I can imagine. Victim of. Okay. Let's get everybody online. I'm feeling good. Let's see. Take me to a place I can imagine. Victim of heartbreak. All right. Welcome, y'all. Hello. All right. Cool. All right, chat. Tonight we got one mission, really one mission only. We just want to really break down this whole Drake denial or actually dismissal by the judge. We're not gonna get through too many topics, but we're gonna try to spend some extensive time on that particular thing. I do want to welcome you guys to our second consecutive stream. We are on our 30-day journey. We only got 28 days left to go. This is day 2. Okay. All right. So if you guys haven't seen the news, Drake lawsuit versus UMG was surreptitiously dismissed today, and I think it was really dismissed to the dismay of many people within Drake's camp, and also to the lawyers. Now, how did this happen? What happened? Why did this happen? What does it mean? I can tell you a few things off rip. Let me tell you this, man. This was like hitting a buzzer beater. Everybody from the industry hit me today. And I'm going to be honest with you. I never knew how much the Drake lawsuit was impacting overall music business. I'm not only really talking about only UMG, but people who work at Sony, Warner. I could tell that this lawsuit that Drake filed was, kind of ruffling some feathers. Regardless, it was basically like a buzzer beater. Niggas start hitting me from that I ain't talked to in years. They said we back on road. It's lit again. It's lit again. That's what they told me. I'm not going to cap with you. Now we're going to break down what does that mean. Why did Drake get his lawsuit tossed? And what are his next steps? And what will his relationship be with these entities and labels as he chooses to continue his music career? Now, welcome and welcome to y'all. All right. Now, I do want to tell y'all first and foremost, and I'm going to be a straight shooter today. I know I'm late as per usual, so I don't got time to be just, doing a lot of word salad. I saw a lot of people at me to say, yo, you're crying. This is why I know, some people are haters and the K-bots, they're as dumb as could be. I've never liked this lawsuit from the get-go. I always told y'all, some of the Drake fans even said it's because, I'm protecting UMG. I always just thought the lawsuit wasn't cool. And what I mean by it wasn't cool is that it was attacking basic fundamentals that is the core values of all rap beefs. And I thought I couldn't support the lawsuit even if I do think that these were heinous and false allegations made by Kendrick Lamar, who clearly, put, I would think, a stigma on Drake. These claims could not be, I couldn't support any judge granting defamation when I love murder music, indictment music. I love when niggas dissing they dead ops. I love when, again, I know Drake fans want to act like Drake is the first person to be offended, but trust me, disrespect has a long history in hip-hop. So when I didn't like the lawsuit, I always told y'all why. I support a lawsuit in two ways, but not necessarily cause I'm blaming defamation on the label. The label should let the artist publish what they want. Okay? However, I do think that if Drake had a reasonable argument about his contractual situation with UMG, he should file it. What does that mean? And I know Drake fans, I'm not trying to talk to Drake fans here, but, I'm trying to address what I've seen. They're like, well, his reasonable argument is that they devalued him with the diss song This and Third. Again, I was waiting on the smoking gun for where Drake could tangibly show, hey, I went to these people and asked them for $600 million. They said the price was too high. Next thing I turn around, these motherfuckers are promoting a song like it's going out of style, dissing me with a bunch of lies in it, and then they came back and offered me $200 million. That's a haircut of $400 million. That was definitely some incorrect business practices, and I would probably be down with that. Again, I love disrespectful music. I love disrespectful music. I love it. This is what I love it. There's nothing more I love more than that. I love when niggas diss your dead granny, your dead mama, your dead mans. That's my type of songs. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what y'all, blast his ass. Like, y'all love songs like that. These are my type of songs. Now, with me not liking this lawsuit is me understanding that no matter how much I like Drake as an artist, I can't rewrite the rules if I like other things in hip hop. Okay? Now, do I think that someone being called a PDF is down the road of defamation? I actually do. I don't believe you go at the publisher. I don't believe you go at the label. I believe you go at the person. So I've always stated that if Drake was going to file the lawsuit, he should file it at Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar engaged in what most people could say is defamation. And I don't think UMG is liable for it. But we're going to get some new context of how the courts actually view this whole thing. And it's actually really enlightening. But I wonder how that's going to relate to how even the Meg Thee Stallion versus Milagro Cooper case is going to pan out. And by the way, another thing that is mentioned here by UMG lawyers that was affirmed by the judge in her motion to dismiss this case was actually a case that had to do with, ironically, Star from Star and Buckwild. His name is, or government name is, Troy Terrain. We're going to read into all of these things, but let's get to it and let's break it down piece by piece. Now, the order came down today. I think most people were shocked. I was shocked that it was granted, given the fact that Drake and his attorneys cited multiple times that they spent a lot of money not only trying to serve people, they spent a lot of money trying to gather evidence and trying to prove their point. And I'm surprised that a judge wouldn't allow them, based on the resources and the measures they went to try to prove his point, at least allow him to get to trial. The judge says, this ain't no case. Okay, so here it is. The opinion and the order is Aubrey Graham versus Universal Recordings. This is out of the Southern District out of New York. And the judge name is Jeanette Vargas, who's a district court judge. And it says the case arises from perhaps the most infamous rap battle in the genre's history. A vitriolic war of words that erupted between superstar recording artists Aubrey Drake Graham and Kendrick Lamar Duckworth, or Kendrick Lamar, in the spring of 2024. Over the course of 16 days, the two artists released 8 so-called diss tracks with increasingly heated rhetoric, loaded accusations, and violent imagery. The penultimate song of this feud, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, dealt the metaphorically kill shot. The song contains lyrics explicitly accusing Drake of being a pedophile, set to a catchy beat and a propulsive bass line. Not Like Us went on to become a cultural sensation, achieving immense commercial success and critical acclaim. Now, this part is written up by the prosecutor. I think she just signed the order. Both Drake and Kendrick have recording contracts with the defendant, UMG. Drake alleges that UMG intentionally published and promoted the song Not Like Us while knowing that the song insinuations that he has sexual relations with minors were both false and defamatory. Drake has brought this action against UMG for defamation, harassment in the second degree, and violation of the Section 349 of the New York General Business Law. And before this court is the defendant's motion to dismiss due to Rule 12b-6 of the civil procedure. Let's go read that rule. We're going to go through this really meticulously, so I want you guys to be knowing that, okay? So Rule 12. Rule 12b-6. Here it is. Wait, hold on. Rule 12a. That's going to be b-6. Failure to state a claim upon which relief can be granted. Wow. Okay, so that was the motion for the dismissal. Because the court concludes that allegedly the defamatory statements in Not Like Us are non-actionable opinions, the motion to dismiss is granted. So actually, this is the order, actually. Here's a legal standard. To survive a motion to dismiss, a complaint must contain sufficient factual matter, accepted as true, to state a claim to relief that is plausible on its face. A plaintiff may not simply allege facts that are consistent with liability. The complaint must nudge plaintiff's claims across the line from conceivable to plausible. Okay, when ruling on a motion to dismiss, the court accepts as true all well-pleaded allegations and draws all reasonable inferences in favorable of the non-moving party. The court does not credit legal conclusions couched as factual allegations. However, the court may also reconsider documents incorporated in the complaint, and the reference and matters of the judicial notice may be taken. Judicial notice is appropriate when a matter is not subject to reasonable dispute because it is generally known within the trial court's territorial jurisdiction or can be accurately, readily determined from the sources whose accuracy cannot be reasonable questioned. Okay. A lot of word salad, and I know you guys are saying, what the fuck does that mean? Okay. They're using some legal standards why they think this motion should be granted, which eventually did. So here's the background. It says the following background is largely taken from the allegations in the amended complaint, which are assumed true for the purposes of the motion. Additionally, the defendant requests that the court take judicial notice of certain extrinsic evidence pursuant to Rule 201 of the Federal Rule of Evidence. These exhibits include lyrics of the song released as part of Drake and Kendrick Lamar's rap battle. Now, I want to pause it there because I don't want to keep reading. And again, we're going to get into the weeds. We're going to get into the weeds with some of these stuff. Essentially, and I think this is a huge ruling. And by the way, most of the case law that was used in here are hip-hop case laws. But I do want to say to y'all, the judge in his overall ruling is saying that if two people in the context and the tradition of what hip-hop is are going back and forth with disrespect or disrespectful songs, aka diss songs, there is much more latitude to what can be said about one party if both parties are engaged. So essentially, by the mere fact that Drake chose to engage in a rap battle, he almost understood that there was going to be mudslinging and mudslinging that he would also be doing as well. Based on that, it's also understood within the culture of a rap battle that a diss or a disrespect is not necessarily seen as fact. It's seen as a opinion by usually the person saying it. That's going to be a big thing because, again, the Supreme Court nor any federal district court will not cast an opinion or give their ruling on any type of thing that is going to impede the First Amendment right, which they're saying that if someone has an opinion on something, that is protected, which means if Kendrick thinks that Drake is a certified whatever, in the context of not only rap, where that would be seen as an opinion, but also in the context of once you engage in a rap battle, you know what it means. That's what they're saying there is no defamation for, okay? Let me keep reading. The following background is largely taken from the allegations in the amended complaint. Additionally, the defendant, which is Drake, no, not Drake, I mean UMG, requests the courts take judicial notice of certain extrinsic evidence pursuant to Rule 201. These exhibits include the lyrics of the songs released as part of the feud. The dates on which these songs were released and the lyrics of these songs are not reasonably subject to dispute, okay? And the songs themselves are, with one exception, all referenced in the amended complaint. Accordingly, the court will take judicial notice of the exhibits H through I and K through O to the request of a judicial notice to understand the defendant's alleged statements and their necessary power and context. Judicial, okay. All right. Exhibit B and are directly lines referenced and relied upon a plaintiff's amended complaint. Let's go down and see what that is. Where's the exhibits? Did we skip them? Okay. We probably skipped them. All right. We're going to just keep going through it one at a time, all right? Okay. So let's get to the factual allegations. When you're reading a civil complaint, you want to get to the factual allegations because that's going to be what is going to be supposedly proved, right, by the plaintiff, right? The plaintiff is saying that Drake is a recording artist, prominent one at that, among other public-facing endeavors. He's had a successful music career. That's a fact. The defendant, through UMG Publishing Group, holds exclusive publishing and distribution rights to Drake's music as well as that of the artist Kendrick Lamar. Now, this is actually really telling. It says that Drake's publishing is actually within the house of, or it's within UMPG, which we don't know if Drake owns his publishing. We just know it's being administered by UMG, which I know some of y'all might be like, what the fuck does that mean? Drake's catalog and also Drake's publishing is with UMG. Why do y'all keep thinking he's going to leave UMG? He's not. It's on April 19th, Drake released a diss song directed at Kendrick Lamar. It was called Push-Ups. In Push-Ups, Drake mocks Lamar's height and shoe size. You big stepping with a size 7 mans on. Pipsqueak pipe down. And he questions Kendrick Lamar's success. You ain't in no big 3. I'm the top of the mountain, so you tight now. You just have to, just to have this talk with your ass, I had to hike down. A few days later, Drake released Tailor Made Freestyle, in which he used an artificial intelligence-generated voice of deceased rapper Tupac and Snoop Dogg to goad Kendrick Lamar. In the track, Tupac and Snoop share their disappointment that Kendrick has not responded to push-ups. See example, it says, "Kendrick, we need you. West Coast savior. You seem a little nervous about the publicity. You got to show this fucking Al who the boss on the West." Okay, whatever. So Drake in his own voice further taunts Kendrick for failing to come up with a satisfactory response, saying, "I know you're in that New York apartment. You're struggling right now. I know it. In the notepad, doing lyrical gymnastics, my boy." He also surmises that Kendrick was purposely delaying the response because the artist Taylor Swift had just released an album. He says Swift the biggest gangster in the music game right now. She got the whole PG Lang on mute like that Beyonce challenge. Y'all boys quiet for the weekend. Lamar then fired off at Drake on a song called Euphoria, which was released on April 30th. And in the track, Lamar claims, "I make music that electrify him. You make music that pacify him." And that he would spare Drake this time. That's a random act of kindness. Know you're a master manipulator and a habitual liar too, but don't tell no lie on me and I won't tell no truths on you. On May 3rd, the feud between Drake and Kendrick escalated as they lobbed increasingly vicious and personal accusations that over the course of the day. First, Kendrick released 616 in LA, okay? He accuses Drake of playing dirty with propaganda, and he raps that if Drake was street smart, he would have caught on that his entourage was only there to hustle him. Drake's next response arrived later in the day in a song called Family Matters, where he jabs at Kendrick's relationship with his partner. Okay? He says, "You the black messiah wifing up a mixed queen, and hit vanilla cream to help out with your self-esteem." On some Bobby shit, you know, I want to know what Whitney need. He and implies that Kendrick physically abused her. "You a dog and you know it. You just play sweet. Your baby mama captions always screaming, 'Save me.' You did all that. You did her dirty all her life, trying to make some peace." Moreover, Drake calls into question whether Kendrick Lamar is the biological father of one of the kids. I heard them little kids might be day free. Now it says, almost immediately after the release of Family Matters, Kendrick unleashed a scathing Meet the Grams track, in which he accuses Drake of being a deadbeat father and hiding his existence from his other children. "You lied about your son. You lied about your daughter. You lied about them other kids that's out there that's hoping that you come." Pause, by the way. Lamar also alleges that Drake has a gambling problem, drinking problem, a pill popping and a spending problem, bad bitch with money, whorehouse soliciting women problem, therapy, a lovely start. He further insinuates that Drake was a predator and Drake should die so all these women can live with a purpose. The next day, on May 4th, Kendrick released a song, Not Like Us, and it's explicitly named that because it says, according to, it basically says, Not Like Us says Drake and his associates are PDFs. Jeez. Okay. Specifically, the track contains these lyrics. "Say Drake, heard you like him young. You better not ever go back to Cell Block 1. To any bitch that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubbs, he the only one that get the hand-me-downs. Party, he's at the party, but he playing with his nose now. Baca got a little bit of weird case. Why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified PDFs. Wop, 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 wop. Dot. Fuck him up. Wop, 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 wop. I'm gonna do my stuff. Why you trolling like a bitch? Ain't you tired? You were probably trying to strike a chord, but it's probably a minor." Okay. On the 5th, Drake responded with the song called The Heart, Part 6, directly denying the allegations of pedophilia. I've never been with no one underage, but now I understand why this is the angle that you really mess with just for charity. I feel disgusted. I'm too respected. If I was fucking young girls, I promise I would have been arrested. I'm too famous for this shit that you suggested. Drake is not a name that you're going to see on the sex offender list. Huh. Okay. Not Like Us was a huge commercial success. It's gained immense popularity on streaming and social media platforms, and it's been streamed globally more than 1.4 billion times on Spotify alone as of April 2025. On November 8th, the Recording Academy nominated Not Like Us for several Grammys. And in February 2025, it won Record of the Year. A week later, on February 9th, Kendrick performed Not Like Us during the Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show. The performance is alleged to be the most watched Super Bowl halftime show of all time with 133.5 million viewers. Okay. Now, I feel like I'm getting slow into this, right? Okay. Let's read the judge's opinion. Oh, before we get to that, this is important. It says a fact versus an opinion. It says under the First Amendment, there's no such thing as a false idea. Only assertions of facts are capable of proving false. Moreover, the New York Constitution provides the absolute protection of opinions, okay? Thus, court must distinguish between statement of fact, which may be defamatory, and expressions of opinion, which are not defamatory. So I hope you guys understand what's being said. If someone espouses their opinion, that wouldn't be a defamatory statement, okay? And have the full protection under the New York Constitution. Whether a challenge statement is a fact or an opinion is a legal question. The plaintiff argues that it's inappropriate for the court to determine at the pleading stage whether a reasonable listener would perceive the recording as fact or an opinion. Yet, because this is a question of law, New York courts routinely resolve this question at the motion to dismiss stage. Okay. So essentially, they claim they're answering the question of, does this song meet the burden of it's being presented as a fact, not as a opinion? Okay. Okay. All right. So they address it at this stage. Whether a statement is a fact or an opinion is a question for the courts of law. Is decided based on what the average person's hearing or reading, and the communication would take to mean, and is appropriately raised at the motion to dismiss stage. Okay, great. Holding to that, because whether a statement is defamatory presents a legal issue to be resolved by the courts. The defamation actions are particularly suitable for resolution on a motion to dismiss. Particularly, there's a particular vague in resolve or value in resolving defamation claims at a pleading stage so as to not protract litigation through a discovery and trial, and therefore or thereby chills the exercise constitutionally and protects the freedom. Cool. All right. In distinguishing a fact and opinion, 3 factors guides the court. 1, whether the specific language in issue has a precise meaning which is readily understood. Whether the statements are capable of being proven true or false. And whether the full context of the communication in which the statement appears on the broader social context and the surrounding circumstances are such as to signal readers or listeners that what is being read or heard is likely an opinion. Interesting. Okay. So it looked like this is the court kind of like, looking at this motion to dismiss and saying, Let's figure out if most of this stuff was presented as a fact or just as an opinion. So the court is conducting this inquiry through the lens of a reasonable listener. In Levin versus Maffei, the plaintiff's suit is focused on a single factual message conveyed by the recording, the false allegation that Drake is a PDF. The recording is myopically focused on ensuring that, I can't read today. I can see it. On ensuring that listeners didn't take away one message from the song. Is Drake a PDF? The statement has a readily understandable meaning and is capable of being proven true or false. But even accusations of criminal behavior are not actionable if it's understood in context. They are opinion rather than fact. Okay. Surrounding circumstances. Next, the court considers the full context of the communication in which this statement appears. All right, this ain't saying much. Let me get to the meat and potatoes of this bullshit. Give me 1 second. By the way, this order did come down today, so give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let me again, I want to speed through this a bit because this becomes voluminous, and I don't want to just like say a bunch of word salad without you guys understanding exactly why this is actually being dismissed. For the people who are Drake fans, listen, don't worry. Here's some Kleenex. You'll be fine. We're all grown. What we're gonna try to understand is what the judge is thinking, right? Because I do believe that this case being dismissed at this stage is, I've spoken to some legal minds, it's kind of unusual, right? But it's clear that the judge, at least in her purview, she's using one test on if this case should survive. What is this test that she's using? The test is, hey, did Kendrick say this and say it as a fact versus an opinion? Also, they're taken into the forum in the context of how this was said. This was said in a mudslinging contest, a rap battle, a place where diss songs are released after each other to disrespect the person, and it's understandable and expected that there will be disrespect or denigration via music. Okay. A rap diss track would not create more expectation in an average listener than the lyrics state sober facts instead of an opinion of a rap diss track would not create more of an expectation in the average listener that the lyrics state sober facts instead of opinion than the statements at issue in those cases. For example, in Euphoria, Lamar calls Drake a master manipulator, a habitual liar, and a scam artist. Drake responds in Family Matter by heavily implying that Kendrick is a domestic abuser. He also raps that he heard that one of Kendrick's sons may not be biologically his. He heard that it might be Dave. No, I'm playing. Let me stop. Why you never hold your son and tell him, say cheese? We could have left those kids out of this. Don't blame me. I heard one of them little kids might be Dave Free. In Meet the Grams, Lamar takes issue with Drake involving his family in their feud, saying that, Dear Aubrey, I know you probably thinking I wanted to crash your party, but truthfully, I don't have a hating bone in my body. This is supposed to be a good exhibition within the game, but you fucked up the moment you called out my family's name. Why you had to stoop so low and discredit some decent people? In the same track, Lamar alleges that Drake uses the weight loss drug Ozempic. Don't cut them corners like your daddy did. Fuck what Ozempic did. Don't pay to play with them Brazilians. Get a gym. Lamar also insinuates that Drake knowingly hires sexual offenders. Grew facial here because he understood being a beard just fit him better. He got sex offenders on OVO that he keep on a monthly allowance. And a particular reference in the Tailor-Made Freestyle, Drake challenged Lamar to make the pedophilia accusations at issue using artificial generated voice of deceased rapper Tupac. It is in context when you say such lyrics as, "Say Drake, I hear you like him young." The similarity in wording strongly suggests that this line is direct callback to Drake lyrics in a prior song. The plaintiff argues that the court should ignore songs that came before and assess Not Like Us as a singular entity. So basically, they want to judge this as a singular entity, and I would imagine this is why it's getting dismissed. The plaintiff argues that the court should ignore the messages that came before. Okay, we read that. The plaintiff contends that the court should not consider those other tracks in assessing how the average listener of the recording would perceive the allegations regarding Drake. There's a number of flaws in this argument. Not Like Us cannot be viewed in isolation, but must be placed in a appropriate factual context. And this is Immuno AG versus Moore, blah, blah. Statements must be first viewed in the context and in the order for courts to determine whether a reasonable person would view them as expressing or implying any facts. Here, the factual context is the insults and trash talking that took place between or via these diss tracks and weeks leading up to the publication of Not Like Us. The songs released during the rap battle are in dialogue with each other. They reference prior songs and then respond to insults and accusation made by the rival. The songs thus must be read together to fully assess how the general audience would be perceiving the statement. So basically, they're on a level of saying, let's figure out what a normal person who's a fan would look at this case or even have a demeanor to this case, because if the regular fan thinks this is an opinion, what the fuck are we going to do, right? Notably, the Second Circuit rejected a second argument in Terrain. Now, this is important right here. Troy Terrain, a.k.a. Star and Buckwild, actually, he had a motion dismissed after he sued someone because they called him a PDF and they called him a predator and all that type of stuff. When he sued them, they argued that the district court improperly considered the statements. All right, hold on. Okay. All right. The district court properly considered all the statements made during the feud between all the disc jockeys, and regardless of what they were included in the complaint. Moreover, while the plaintiff is correct that the intended audience for the recording is a general public and not a subset of rap devotees or Kendrick Lamar fans, the recordings in the rap battles were likely released to the general public. Those were not songs accessible to the select niche few, but tracks released by commercial successful artists were. Interesting. I'm trying to get a quick breakdown here because there is a lot going on, Chad. Did my man? Give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Perhaps most fatally for the plaintiff's argument, it would render protection for artistic expression dependent on a impermissible retroactive analysis. At the time he released Not Like Us, Kendrick Lamar could have not been aware it would be breaking record streaming, win Record of the Year at the Grammys, or be featured at the Super Bowl halftime show. Yet the plaintiff would have, the court divorced the recording from the context in which it was created because those subsequent events. Whether the publications constitute actionable fact or protected opinion cannot vary based on the popularity they achieve. Constitutional guarantees does not rest on such a flimsy foundation. Okay, the plaintiff counters and says that if the recording protected opinions at the time of its initial publication, UMG publication or republication of Not Like Us in the months following, after it achieved its unprecedented level of success, exposes it to liability. This argument is logically incoherent. If the recording was not actionable opinion at the time when it was introduced, then the republication would not expose UMG to liability. Okay, they're going into the weeds here. Jesus Christ. Give me a second, man. They are going crazy. I'm not even going to lie to you. Give me 1 second. Okay.
Drake's defamation lawsuit against
I'm gonna take a picture.
UMG has been dismissed. And I'm not a lawyer, but y'all know I read all 38 of them pages, so here's a recap. Let's start with the judge's opening words for the order, which says, quote, "This case arises from perhaps the most infamous rap battle in the genre's history, the vitriolic war of words that erupted between superstar recording artists Drake and Kendrick Lamar in the spring of 2024. Over the course of 16 days, the two artists released 8 so-called diss tracks with increasingly heated rhetoric, loaded accusations, and violent imagery. The penultimate song of this feud, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, dealt the metaphoric killing blow. The song contains lyrics explicitly accusing Drake of liking children, set to a catchy beat and propulsive bass line. Not Like Us went on to become a cultural sensation, achieving immense commercial success and critical acclaim." Now, Judge, are you a fan? Now, as a reminder, Drake was suing UMG for defamation, harassment, and violation of the New York business law. One of his main points in this lawsuit was that UMG defamed him when they published, promoted, exploited, and made money off of Kendrick's song, knowing that what Kendrick said in that song was false and dangerous. Particularly the A minor line, him being Malibu's most wanted, and then the song's cover art, which was of Drake's house with offender icons all over it. So first up are the lyrics and the overall message of Not Like Us, which was that Drake is a person who engages with young children. And the question the judge has to answer is, were those lyrics meant as an opinion and therefore they fall under free speech, or are they meant to be taken as fact and therefore defamatory? And according to the judge, context matters here. The judge says, although the accusation that Drake likes young kids is certainly serious, the broader context of this being a heated rap battle with incendiary language and offensive accusations hurled by both participants would not incline the reasonable listener to believe that Not Like Us imparts verifiable facts about Drake. That doesn't stand. Moving on to the album cover art, the judge says that this too is just an opinion, and no reasonable person would view the image and believe that law enforcement had in fact designated 13 residents.
Now, I want to say I stray away from some of the judge's opinion here. And by the way, I was, again, even though I will admit I do not like this lawsuit, I always thought it was weak and flimsy. I will say that the judge blanket dismissal is a little bit shocking to me. I mean, some of these things that Drake is bringing up, even though it's supporting the defamation and maybe the business practice count, I'm with Drake on this. If you put his house with a bunch of those things, I think to the average listener who is not that tuned in, they might think that, oh, isn't Drake being investigated or accused of a crime? I think that would be reasonable.
In Drake's home as offenders. And so that also is dismissed. Up next is the harassment claim. And for this one, the judge basically says that New York does not have a civil cause of action for harassment, meaning harassment is not something you can sue for in New York. It seems that in New York, harassment is a criminal matter, meaning it's something you report to the police, not something you sue over. And even in the exceptions where you are allowed to sue for it, the judge says Drake's case doesn't meet those requirements. And you can even see here, the judge notes that courts routinely dismiss civil harassment claims as not cognizable under New York law. So lyrics, imagery, and now harassment dismissed. The last claim for the lawsuit was the violation of New York business law, and this had to do with UMG allegedly using their resources to make Not Like Us more popular than it was. Drake's team claimed that UMG used bots, they paid influencers and radio DJs to play the song, and they claimed that UMG got Spotify to redirect searches for Drake's music to Kendrick's song. And to this, the judge says, even if all of that is true, how did it harm consumers, aka the audience, which is a requirement for this New York business law? According to the judge, in the complaint.
Oh wow, and we're gonna get to read that, but check this out. That particular portion of the law is not about protecting Drake, it's about protecting the consumer. So they're like, the consumers could still access the product. The judge isn't going to make a determination on about which rapper is getting promoted more or promoted less. They just want to know, is the consumer's access to these artists altered, which supposedly it wasn't.
Drake and his team never claimed that consumers were harmed because they had to pay more money for something, or that they bought something they wouldn't have otherwise purchased because of a misrepresentation, or that consumers received less value for something that they did purchase. At most, according to the judge, UMG engaged in practices to make Not Like Us seem more popular than it actually was without connecting that activity to any consumer harm. And therefore, this claim must also be dismissed. And so the entire lawsuit has been dismissed. Y'all think Kendrick on the way to the studio right now?
Okay. So we'll get back into it a little bit. So, all right. Tone and language. Now, this is kind of important here, right? So it says, all right, tone and language. That the recording can only be reasonably understood as an opinion is reinforced by the language employed in the song. The court examines the tone and apparent purpose. Loose, figurative, or hyperbolic statements, even if deprecating the plaintiff, imaginative expression, cannot constitute actionable defamation. A court may also consider whether the general tenor of the publication negates the impression that the challenged statements imply defamatory facts about the plaintiff. In Rappaport, and I don't know what case this is, I think it's Barstool versus Rappaport. For example, the court concluded that the tone and apparent purpose of the diss track, especially considering the hyperbolic and vitriolic words and imagery, further reinforced for the audience that the video is not to intend to reflect an accurate and factual assessment of Rappaport. The district court faced no difficulty in concluding that the context of this diss track video reasonably signals to viewers that the challenge statements are prejudiced, opinionated viewpoints of Barstool defendants. The Second Circuit affirmed that the district court analysis, including that the nature and the tone of the surrounding language can function as a strong indicator, to the reasonable reader that the statement is not expressing or implying any facts. Not Like Us is replete with profanity, trash talking, threats of violence, and figuratively and hyperbolic language, all of which are indicia, or I would say indicative, of opinion. A reasonable listener would not equate a song that contains lyrics as, "Ain't no law, boy, you ball boy, fetch Gatorade or something. Since 2009, I had this bitch jumping," with an accurate factual report. And so basically, they took some lines that ain't about nothing, and they said no one would listen to this song and say, "Oh, this is all facts," right? No reasonable person, okay? According to the reasonable listener of Not Like Us, accordingly, a reasonable listener of Not Like Us would conclude that Kendrick is rapping hyperbolic vituperations, and the plaintiff contends that in determining if the lyrics in Not Like Us expresses fact or opinion, the court must consider the subjective view of listeners as well as commentators in the rap industry and press who understood the recording, image, and video as an attempt to convey a precise, factual information, and the amended complaint cites extensively to comments and posts from YouTube and Instagram that expressed the belief that the recording had exposed the truth and that Drake was truly engaged in pedophilia and sexual violence against children. Wow. But distinguishingly, between fact and opinion is a question of law for the courts to be decided on based on what average person is hearing or is reading the entire communication to mean. This dispositive inquiry in which a reasonable listener could have concluded that the statements were conveying facts about the plaintiff. The courts have made the determination by looking at the full context and surrounded circumstances of the challenge communication. The court holds that based upon a full review of context in which Not Like Us was published, a reasonable listener would not conclude that Not Like Us was very conveying objective facts about Drake. The video expressed by blah, 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 and other YouTube, okay, who are these YouTubers? Instagram commentators quoted in the complaint do not have the court's analysis. In a world where billions of people are active online, support for almost any proposition, no matter how far-fetched and fantastical and unreasonable, can be found with little effort due to any number of comment sections, chat rooms, and servers. That some readers may infer a defamatory meaning from a statement that doesn't necessarily provide or render the inference reasonable under circumstances. Jesus Christ, this reading is long, chat. I ain't gonna lie to you. This shit is so long. Give me 1 second. Where's the little legal? Oh, let me listen to.
Okay, it's Inner City Press, Matthew Russell Lee, here in Foley Square. And what we can announce is that late this afternoon, Judge Vargas has dismissed Drake's lawsuit against UMG Recordings, Inc. This is actually the lawsuit about Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us. And we covered it. We covered the back and forth about the bots, about various theories of harm. But in a 38-page decision just issued late this afternoon, Jeanette A. Vargas, district judge, says, in essence, because the court concludes that the alleged defamatory statements in Not Like Us are non-actionable opinion, the motion to dismiss is granted. This case is dead. Now, of course, I believe it will be appealed. It will be appealed, but that's why she took so much time. It was long ago that we live tweeted the oral arguments. She goes through all the factors. She wasn't very convinced about the box business, but there's a key sentence, there's a key section where she talks about the First Amendment and what she basically says that no reasonable listener would have believed that this was a statement of fact, that the rap genre and hyperbole is a word that she uses, results in the inability to sue for defamation in this case. Tone and language. That the recording can only reasonably be understood as opinion is reinforced by the language employed in the song.
Okay. So let me just give my thoughts on this entire thing. This was always a weak-ass lawsuit from the get-go. I like Drake. This was a weak lawsuit. It's a weak lawsuit in the fact that, again, if you listen to diss music, I listen, I don't like that there was a false allegation put against my guy. It was false. But such is the case with hip hop. People call people R words. People say really nasty things about each other. So the idea of suing the publisher, and I kind of look at it like in a media sense, you're suing the publisher, which, at first he was going at DSP's radio and UMG. They would be the publishers of said material. I thought he should have sued Kendrick Lamar. Now, what do I think about the decision? I think this was going to be a landmark precedent case. And I'll give you an example. I just went to federal court, and Meg Thee Stallion and them, they got me in federal court. And during my deposition, they asked me a question. They said, yo, how'd you get this DNA report that you tweeted? My exact answer was, I wouldn't tell y'all even if I knew. Then I said, I don't recall. In the hearing that I went before the judge, shout out to my man Brendan Day, the Honorable Judge Brendan Day, he pointed out that while making his ruling on the order, which if you don't know his ruling is that I'm going to sit for another short deposition, but they can't ask about Drake's stake and Nicki and all the stuff. They got to keep it to this one particular subject or follow-up questions regarding it. But I'll tell you why I told you that. I told you that because this becomes landmark situations. In the motion with me, the judge made it very clear. He actually went on like a 5-minute soliloquy saying, hey, Mr. Allen, what we have here in New Jersey is called a shield law that protects journalists and media companies. He says, hey, listen, I'm not making a decision that will be that any other future cases should look back at this case to see how I treated either you as a media company or newer media people that might be streamers. There's a lot of precedents. That's how court works. If one judge says this behavior results in this, usually most other judges, when queried with a similar decision, they'll make the same or the similar choice. Okay? So that's important. Now, it works opposite for Drake. Because if Drake motion, it could have still went to trial. But what this motion definitely said is that it's not going to protect people in a rap battle from getting your feelings hurt. And had they said there was merit to this case, I would imagine that we would see much more lawsuits fly off. Because, you called me fat in a diss song. You said this about my relative, or you said that about whatever that caused me emotional damage. I need some money. And from what we could see is that the judge in this Drake situation is categorically denying and will not make what he doesn't want to start a precedence that anybody who gets dissed. Now, I got to keep referencing Drake fans because they always lose me when I'm speaking to them with this one point. Because they're always saying, nah, man, it ain't the same. That ain't the same as somebody calling you a PDF. Well, under the eyes of the law, somebody calling you fat or a PDF, while they might have different weights and values in how it could be, how both of these, insults or whatever could probably proportionately affect your career or your business. On face value, it's disrespect, right? So the point is, if they allowed or they said Drake's legal battle is all the way fine, and this even goes to a trial, we don't even know what might happen there. what ends up happening is everybody's going to get sued because you have now opened Pandora's box. So I believe the judge didn't want to open Pandora's box and basically said to Drake, yo, this was this person's opinion more than it was a representation of the facts. So because of that, defamation, which requires a bunch of things, not only it requires malice, it requires malice. You got to be able to prove the damages that this defamation has caused. And with all of those things, you could get a favorable look in a defamation case, right? But this judge stopped at this first checkpoint here and said, yo, this is opinion. Now, I disagree with it. I don't believe some of these things are only just kicked as not necessarily, this is my opinion and whatever. I think Kendrick kind of puts a little bit more muster in it to kind of make it look like, bro, this guy did some shit. I'm going to be honest with you. The judge didn't agree, though. Not necessarily, this is my opinion and whatever. Oh, never mind. I'm playing that. Where is it? By the way, this was a it's expected Drake PR machine is a bit more measured in light of this. Sophia just emailed me this one sentence. We intend to appeal the court's ruling and we look forward to the Court of Appeals reviewing it. Okay? I replied to Sophia, asked her how much her company's paid to send these press releases. That is, of course, not expecting her to tell me, but if she's going to solicit questions, why not throw one out there? So far, no reply. You could tell Meg don't fuck with Drake. Or Meg, what do you call it again? Megan Cuniff. Okay. All right. I do want to continue to read it. I know some people say, yo, that other woman already summed it up. I just wanted to read the last part of it, which is usually, this is the full, like, thing. Okay, actually, that woman did sum it up pretty good. So, second degree harassment, they're saying they can't recognize a cause of action to recover damages from this. This is more of a criminal thing, not a civil thing. Got that. Mixed opinion. Although pure opinion cannot constitute actionable defamation, which is very important. This is kind of going to bleed, even though it's two different districts. This is Southern District of New York. Milagro Cooper's case is in the, I believe, Southern District of Florida. You know, Meg Thee Stallion is suing people for defamation. And I'm wondering how much, you know, again, I don't know fully what Meg either did or whatever, but it looks like this might be a similar ruling, which I'm surprised that didn't get thrown out as well, because, yeah, people gave their opinions. If you listen to my deposition with Meg's people, we gave our opinion. I give my opinion, and they don't like my opinion, right? So you hear a judge says pure opinion cannot constitute actionable defamation. Now, that's very important, because I do think that in this change in times, people are now trying to bully people's opinion and call it defamation. Right? A mixed opinion, which is an opinion that implies that it is based upon facts which justify the opinion but are unknown to those reading or hearing it, that is actionable. Wow, okay, hold on. So a pure opinion is not actionable, but a mixed opinion is actionable. But the mixed opinion is defined as an opinion that implies that based upon facts which justify the opinion but are unknown to those readers actionable. Okay. The mixed opinion holds the implication that the speaker knows certain facts unknown to the audience, which supports his opinion and are detrimental to the person about whom he's speaking about. Whether statements constitute mixed opinions, constitute mixed opinions presents a legal question, which must be answered by considering the context of the entire communication and of the circumstances in which they were spoken or written. Whether the average listener would reasonably understand the opinion as implying the assertion of undisclosed facts, justifying the opinion. Okay. Just as the overall context of Not Like Us, it forecloses the argument that its lyrics can be read as factual assertions. The same context negates any implication that Kendrick Lamar's lyrics are based on undisclosed facts. So they're saying that what Kendrick is saying is what's called a pure opinion as opposed to a mixed opinion. So mixed opinion would be like, yo, that nigga over there, he's a R word. Don't ask me how I know, but I know some shit. I seen the shit. He's a R word. Now, that would be a mixed opinion, as opposed to me saying, that nigga's creepy, or that nigga look like a R word, or he probably is a R word, right? One's a pure opinion. One is acting like I have facts that everybody reading it don't know. Okay, where an audience may anticipate the use of epithets. So now they're bringing back in the context. And when they mention the context, right, it's a holding to where statements are made in circumstances where an audience may anticipate the use of epithets, fire, rhetoric, and hyperbole. Inference could not reasonably be drawn that assertions were based on undisclosed facts. In the context of this rap battle, no reasonable person would listen to Not Like Us and assume that Kendrick Lamar uniquely had access to credible, provable facts that revealed Drake to be a PDF. I'm going to be honest with you. I disagree with that. The way how Kendrick was talking, it felt like he was going to reveal many things. That he really had a kid. That Drake may have a crazy case that he's hiding too, which we've now find out, like, that's not the case at all, right? The plaintiff's arguments to the lyrics that Not Like Us can be read to suggest Kendrick's reliance upon undisclosed facts being availing. The plaintiff first posits that the line, "Say Drake, I hear you like them young," indicates Lamar has heard from an outside source with evidence confirming that Drake is a PDF. As discussed infra, however, that ignores this line is reasonably understood to be a direct response to Drake's challenge in Lamar in Tailor-Made Freestyle. Okay, wow. So it's coming to pass that Drake's Tailor-Made Freestyle bit him in the ass. They're using it against him, at least as judges. They're saying, yo, you invited the nigga to say it about you. You guys are in a rap battle. He's not saying it like, yo, I got the info on these people. He's saying it as a pure opinion. What more do you want, right? He says, talk about Drake liking young girls. Heard it on the Button podcast. It got to be true. So this lyric clearly prods Kendrick Lamar to discuss pre-existing rumors about Drake's interest in minors. Lamar's responsive lyrics are thus akin to the accusation of pedophilia in Terrain that the Second Circuit concluded constituted pure opinion. There, the Second Circuit concluded that a reasonable person would understand, based on the context, that the defendant disc jockey was using the term PDF in response to directly pertinent comments made by the plaintiff during their war for words and not relying upon undisclosed facts. The plaintiff's next points to the lyrics. Rabbit hole so deep, I could go further, I promise. Plaintiff argues that a reasonable listener could view the lyric as suggesting that Kendrick has specific evidence to back up his assertion of pedophilia. It is also not all that clear that this is a natural reading of the lyric. Wow. By the way, look how much stuff they try to put to support it. Hard Part 6. Only fucking with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I never looked twice at a teenager. To understand the relevancy, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Yeah, they're putting all the shit in this shit. God damn, chat. Give me 1 second. Yes, give me 1 second. Trying to pull this shit up. Okay, I can't pull it up. Anyway, what do I think this means for Drake's career? I believe Drake's situation with Republic / UMG is going to be fractured. I don't care. No matter. I think they put out a statement saying, hey, now we could go back to promoting his music or whatever the case is. Yeah, that sounds good. But I think what Drake kind of got himself into is that Universal's like, not only do we just give you the whipping in court, now we got to really humble your ass, because we can't have you in the position where you think you could just willy-nilly go ahead and file some type of civil suit that kind of fucks up our business. So I definitely do believe 100% that UMG is going to be looking at how much money they had to spend here, and they're going to get that off the back of Drake. I'm sorry to tell you. Rock with Drake and everything, but I think they're going to look at that to say, Drake, one way or another, we're going to get that money back from you, brother. Okay? One way or another.
Relations with minors were false and defamatory. In some breaking news, Drake's defamation lawsuit against UMG over Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us has been dismissed. Let's read what Judge Vargas had to say. This case arises from perhaps the most infamous rap battle in the genre's history, the vitriolic war of words that erupted between superstar.
Okay, we read that already.
Of B6, the court accepts as a true, all well-pledged allegations and draws all reasonable inferences in favor of the non-moving party, and then they cite the next source. The court need not credit legal conclusions couched as factual allegations, however. Now, the judge went over this with due process and fairly. And I tried to tell people who wanted to listen to OVO docket all day, they are posting bias.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that they're posting biased information. I think everybody has a spin of this information. Again, I think Kendrick fans, I think they were wrong, and I think Drake fans were wrong, because they're looking at it from a Kendrick and a Drake perspective. This was always bigger than Kendrick and Drake. This was about, you need to set a precedent for music, right? By the way, I do think that there's parts of Drake's lawsuit that, could be refiled, right? I think Drake has I got to see if this shit was dismissed with prejudice. Okay, here we go. His motion to dismiss is granted. It actually doesn't mention prejudice, so it looks like it could be refiled again. Yeah. So if you ask me, but I think Drake would have to expose himself. I think Drake does have maybe some argument about, hey, this company is working against me contractually. Now, I don't think he wants to open up that Pandora's box, because you're going to have to take the lid off all the UMG, whether it's secrets or whatever that they've even helped you with. And again, I don't know if he'll refile that, but I do think the defamation should have always included Kendrick. It should have included Kendrick maybe and UMG. But at this point, this looks so fractured. Even if he refiles, I think the momentum behind is definitely gone.
Information and never made any motion to dismiss.
Okay. Everybody posting Kendrick likes going out of style. All right. Now, I always said that, for the people who had thoughts and were hopeful that Drake's lawsuit was one for the artist and he was fighting against the man. A lot of people said that because they were like, why are you like defending UMG a little bit here? Which I wasn't, but people felt like I was not as pro Drake as I should be. I've always disliked this lawsuit from the perspective of if Drake was trying to do this for artists, you need to rally the artists. Drake hasn't said a single word about this lawsuit himself. It's like it's just kind of going on in the background. Lawyers are doing what they're doing. They're milking all of these artists combined, just like charging through the ass for hours. And I think Drake failed to let people know what the plight was if he was trying to go on an artist measure. He's trying to go for, hey, I'm doing this for all artists. I think nobody knew what the fuck he was doing and probably thought that he was just a sore loser. So that became a big problem, if you ask me. Did he post anything to his thing? More life, my brother, OVO Nico. So Drake seemingly is ignoring this. Yeah. Let's do Drake. Is this the thing where everybody's reacting to it? Oh, no. Yeah, I don't know what becomes of this, man. Let's go to OVO Docket and see what they're saying. They're appealing the ruling. Yeah. Anyway. All right, man. Okay. Chat. I felt like that was kind of like long and drawn out. Could y'all just on face value just ask me whatever questions y'all want me to just directly answer about this particular motion to dismiss? Again, I'm repeating myself, but I thought the case would have survived all the way to trial. I still didn't think Drake was going to win. I think there was many things that needed to be proven, and I don't think that he even came close to prove like some type of conspiracy that the Universal Music Group somehow cooked up to try to devalue him and then promote Kendrick's song, which became like the biggest diss song of all time. It's a little bit out the weeds. I got to be honest. Let me go check on King Akademiks. You say if he appeals, he looks more goofy than he did without the beard. I mean, I got to imagine that Drake spent $1 million on this. Now he's a billionaire. But I do think that the loss, optic-wise, doesn't look good. It actually makes him look like an amateur. And again, that's my guy. But it does make him look like, this is a motion to dismiss. I'm so surprised that this motion to dismiss was granted. Will Drake ever address this? I don't know if he will. I haven't asked him about it. I don't know. Anyway, let me move on.